Welcome to another edition of Fourth and Justus, the dopest sports show around. It's raw, uncut, unfiltered. And we look at the intersection of race, sports, and politics. And as usual, we have an awesome co-host, Luke Fedlam, Kevin Anderson, Luke from Columbus, Ohio, Kevin in warm and sunny Colorado Springs, Colorado. How cold is it, Kevin, there?
Today it's warm. It's about 23 degrees.
Oh, man, 23. Today in Austin, Texas, Luke, it'll be 84. What's that weather looking like in Columbus, Luke?
Man, that's
Columbus, it's not too bad. Columbus about 40 degrees. We'll be all right.
Okay, I know this morning you're shooting in from New York City, so enjoy the city for us, as they call it. As always, we got a lot to talk about today in a short period of time. We'll get at it. As predicted, the NCAA, the National Collegiate Athletic Association, said that they need to put some parameters around the name, image, and likeness legislation. One of the things they mentioned that schools were basically arranging NIL deals for recruits. And they also said, and I find this to be very hypocritical and just comical, that name, image, and likeness is starting to affect, quote, the mental health of the student athlete. Now, Kevin, the NCAA could have got ahead of this a long time ago. They did nothing. So what is your response now to the NCAA saying that they need to basically get parameters around it? And as the old folks used to say, the horse has already left the barn.
Gone. The horse is gone. You can't even see the horse anymore. This is the third committee they put together, I think. So at first, if you look at this now and everybody's saying this is just like a couple of years ago when somebody would leave a room with small bills in a paper bag. And they knew this was coming. So, Leonard, I can't even comment on this because it's so ridiculous. And this is a reflection, again, on the leadership. And I'm not just talking about the leadership of the NCAA. I'm talking about all these presidents. They're supposed to be smart people. They're running billion-dollar industries, and they let this happen again. And now they're coming back and saying they're going to put some parameters on it. What kind of parameters can they put on this? I mean, come on. This is a joke, but nobody's laughing. It's a bad joke, and, well, and then you say they're talking about the mental health of the student athlete? Okay, well, Luke, it's all yours, buddy.
Listen, I know, Kevin, I know you said you don't have that much that you could say. I have plenty that I could say about this. They talked about, to your point, Doc, they said, we want to be able to review this and study the impact on academics, school choice, on transfers, and on mental health. And I think it is absolutely just preposterous that this is kind of the discussion that we're having right now, right? Kevin said it, right? The horse is gone, right? This is happening. But here's something I think it's important to recognize in all of this. What they said was not that we're investigating NIL. They said we're going to study it. We're going to review it, right? Because let's be clear, the NCAA is not going to be able to put parameters on NIL based on the NCAA versus Alston unanimous Supreme Court decision last summer. So in that, the court, and not just generally, because that case itself dealt with on education-related benefits. But in the concurring opinion, Justice Kavanaugh was like, hey, NCAA, let's be clear. We're going to use the same analysis if you try to limit student-athlete compensation in any other way. So what the NCAA, though, has to rely on then is, can we still enforce our existing rules as it relates to impermissible benefits? Can we look at NIL and find ways in which there are recruiting violations where it's being used, not in any way of limiting student athletes in their right to earn compensation, but can we find out where schools are possibly using NIL to try to recruit or to try to have student athletes transfer from one school to the other? I think it will be interesting to see how they frame this study because they have zero power when it comes to limiting name, image, and likeness.
Hey, Doc, can I just intervene for 1 minute, please? Because I know what's going on now. I mean, you do have fans and boosters already putting together these groups and soliciting money for them to pay these kids. I mean, it's going on. You don't have to study that. It's right there in front of them. I mean, again, this is a joke. It's just unbelievable. And the other thing is they want the federal government to come in here and fix this thing for them. They're not fooling anybody. They're waiting for that. And the sad part about that is, look how broke our government is. So now you have the blind leading the blind. It's just, it's just unbelievable.
Right.
But that's the point, Kevin, right? I think you hit it right on the head, which is, they want the government to intervene. And so I think this study is another way for them to say, hey, federal government, we need you to intervene to uphold the integrity, right, of college sports. And if you don't intervene, because let's be honest, you're right. The federal government has significant issues that they're dealing with that go beyond whether or not student athletes should be compensated, right? We're talking about Russia. We're talking about infrastructure. We're talking about midterm elections coming up. There are things that the government is really focused on. And student athlete compensation is not one of them. So I think that this idea of putting a study together and throwing in these terms like mental health and things like that, that's where I feel like they're trying to put something together that they can at least come back to Congress and say, we need you to act because we can.
And I'll say this, they're not going to get any help from Republicans, because the one thing Republicans in the South, one thing they agree on, we got to have a football team that's going to win. So if that means put money in these brothers' pockets, pay them. So you don't get any kind of restrictions there. What I don't understand, Kevin, is that the NCAA forms these committees, and they are often led by college presidents. No offense to college presidents, this is not their lane. And I think the president of the University of Georgia is the one who's going to lead this study. And so, Kevin, how come they appoint committees with people who don't know what they're talking about? They don't have the expertise to really look at NIL.
Well, hey, Leonard, I'll take it a step further. Then they form these committees, and they have people, and not to say anything about them, but are working in the NCAA office that are, not athletic directors, but they're working in compliance or they're working in academics. And they don't know the gravity of what we're dealing with in this situation. And it just becomes, and I'm not going to use the last word, but I'm going to use the first word, it becomes a cluster. And then you could add in what I'm thinking about now. But, it's amazing how it's like Groundhog Day. And this happens over and over and over again. And people allow it. And then you hear all these talk show radios and you get these people on there and they're wondering what the hell's going on. And I mean, they need to now, because this is insanity.
Right. Luke,
let's be clear, though. Well, real quick, though, because what are they studying? Like, that's the important thing to think about. What are they actually studying? So they're going to go back and say, they're going to, like, to your point, college presidents don't really understand kind of all of what's going on here, right? They're constantly having to be educated by athletic directors who are day by day, or heads of compliance who daily are trying to figure it out themselves. We know, I speak to schools all across the country. We know that one of the challenges that they face are student athletes not disclosing the deals that they're doing. So how are they really going to, like, what are they actually going to study, right? So, okay, so then you go to a student athlete, like, hey, student athlete, did somebody from the school athletic department say, hey, we're going to get you this deal? How did you get this? How did this NIL deal come about? I mean, what they're proposing to me is going to be, it's just a whole lot of talk that's going to result in very little action and very little meaningful information to try to help this whole situation.
Okay, let's take the NCAA side for a minute. And people use words like out of control, the wild, wild west. How do you explain Texas A&M, and I'm not saying this because I work at Texas, how do you explain Texas A&M having the highest ranked recruiting class in the history of college football? They went 8-4 last year. I mean, so from the NCAA's perspective, Kevin, is Texas A&M, and Luke asked you, is Texas A&M Exhibit A that, hold on a minute, there's something wrong going on here, because although Jimbo Fisher may be a nice guy, he's never had a recruiting class like this before.
Well, first of all, Leonard, when I was growing up, I always wanted to go to College Station, so I mean, just the appeal of going to College Station, I think that speaks for itself. And then to talk about their football coach, and I don't know, and I'm not doubting that he might be a good football coach, but I definitely don't want to put him in front of people and have him talking on subjects like this, because intellectually, I don't know how much he gets it. I think he's like Justice Kavanaugh. He likes beer. But anyway, we need to, this whole thing was set up. And if you didn't see it coming, you're blind. Because from the get-go, this thing had all the ramifications of what's happening now. And, there's no way about it. Now we're going to do another study. Again, I'm going to hand it over to you guys because I'll start saying things I don't want to say because I'm trying to be a good Christian this morning.
That's right. Luke, is A&M, is A&M Exhibit A. And I will predict that 6 or 7 of those brothers will transfer before the first game in September. But go ahead, Luke.
So we have to realize something. And I think, you know what? Hey, NCAA, I'll do the study for you. Here's the study, and here's the response. And NIL is an asset that a school has to use to help recruit players. Period. Right. So we've had donors and boosters and everybody else contributing hundreds of millions of dollars for facilities. Right. Because we want to make sure before NIL, it was like, let's have the best facilities. Let's have barbershops in our locker rooms. Let's have, all these different, gadgets and gizmos. Right. To be the coolest facility, because that is literally like how we recruit our athletes. Let's make sure that we put as much money into the best coaches we possibly can, because again, that's another asset that we have to recruit the best talent, because we want to win championships that get us better media dollars that helps continue to make more money. Well, guess what? NIL is another asset that a school can use. Whether or not the school can actually say, hey, we're going to give you this deal, they can absolutely have their boosters and others that say, hey, these are some of the alumni of pick a school, whatever school. These are some of the alumni. This is what they do. They're business owners, they're CEOs. They may just happen to want to work with you if you were a student athlete here. Great. Now all of a sudden you've got, 6-figure or more NIL deals for the student athlete. And that is another asset that the school has at its disposal to try to recruit so that they can win games. Study complete. I'll send you a bill, NCAA.
Now, I'll tell you this. You all know my son is on the recruiting circuit. He's a sophomore. He's pretty good, too. And a brother came up to me at the 7-on-7 tournament. He said, hey, man, we got to make sure your son makes it into the top 100 of his class. He said, because listen to this now. Some schools are using that as the sort of barometer to get NIL deals. If you can get in the top 100, and they talking about when you're being recruited, you can negotiate this stuff. I'm like, man, we'll see how it all shakes out.
Hey, Doc, when that happens, Doc, just give me a call. Just give me a call. I'll help you out. Give me a call.
I got you, Luke. Don't worry about that. Sticking with college sports, going over to Madison, Wisconsin, Juwan Howard, a member of the Fab Five and coach at the University of Michigan, found himself in a bit of a scuffle the other day after the Wisconsin-Michigan game over a dispute about sportsmanship. Wisconsin was up big. Juwan Howard was pressing. He said he wasn't pressing. The Wisconsin coach called a timeout. Juwan Howard didn't like it. And during the post-game handshake between the coaches, it appeared to me that the Wisconsin head coach put his hands on Juwan Howard. Luke, when you watched the incident, what did you see? What's the first thing you saw when you watched the incident between Howard and Garber?
Yeah, the coach put his hands on him. We all saw it. We saw that happen. At the end of the day, here's the deal. You can't lay hands on somebody as a coach, right? Just kind of bottom line. I'm not here to defend Juwan Howard and his actions. I think he recognized that his actions were that he went too far. It doesn't set a good example for the game, for his kids or whatever. I will say, however, if I'm playing on Michigan's team right now, I love Juwan Howard even more. I'm going to play even harder for my coach. He's going to be suspended for the rest of the regular season, but guaranteed when he's back on the bench for the Big Ten tournament and then into March Madness, I'm giving him every single thing I got, because clearly our coach was fighting for us.
Kevin, if you are the AD and Juwan Howard is your men's basketball coach, do you wait for the conference to lay down punishment or sanctions, or do you do something before the conference makes a judgment?
I definitely think before the conference, we're definitely having a discussion after the game. I'm asking him what happened. I'm reviewing the tape. He's a very competitive person. This is a very competitive sport, and there's a lot of dollars behind it as well. For him to call timeout with I forgot how many seconds left, he could have taken, whatever. They could have got called for the 10 seconds behind the line and taken the ball out. They weren't going to lose. So that's one thing. And then for him to come over and try to justify it, and if he would have been a smart grown man, he would have just walked by him and said, and not encountered with them. Mm-hmm. So, I'm glad that they caught that on tape and that it wasn't just that they're blaming Coach Howard for this.
Yeah.
He's going to have to do some soul searching, and he's going to have to control his emotions sometimes, because it can't get to this, because he brought his student athletes into this as well, and which isn't good. So now you've got 2 or 3 young men who were suspended. So, nobody wins in this, but I think the right thing has taken place. And I think that hopefully that this is it, and everybody's able to go on and pick up in the postseason and play, and it's forgotten.
Luke, how do you respond to people who said, well, Juwan Howard had a similar incident last year with the Maryland head coach, where he allegedly told with Turgeon, Kevin's boy, that I'll kill you. How do you respond to that? And also the thing about the timeout, they said Howard is being hypocritical because he was up 16 on the team earlier this year and called a timeout with 30 seconds left. And so it seems to me, and even Juwan Howard's press conference, Luke, they asked him, they said, if you wanted to get the game over with, why were you pressing? He said, we weren't pressing, we were in 5 men. Say, brother, you were pressing. And so it seems to me that sometimes Howard's, his explanations don't add up. So Luke, help me understand some of that.
Let's be real. Come on. We've all been in this situation before, right? You let your emotions get the best of you. You do something because of your emotion. And then you have to figure out, how can I try to justify this now that things have calmed down and I'm being asked about it? How can I legitimize it, justify it, and try to make sense of it? Right. And that's what he's doing. Right. He's a highly competitive coach in a highly competitive sport, like Kevin mentioned. And he let the emotions get the best of him. I think that he tried.
But he's 50 years old. Come on, man. He's 50.
I'm not defending him. I'm not saying it's okay. I'm just saying what I believe happened, right? I believe that he let it get the best of him. Does he have to do better? Absolutely. Are these things going to continue to add up on kind of the list of, potential knocks about him? Yeah, absolutely. But as long as he keeps winning, as long as it doesn't go too far, as long as he, is mindful that he's going to continue to have a place. Listen, I think he's one of the most exciting coaches in college basketball to see. Again, let's just be clear.
So was Bobby Knight. He was exciting to see.
Well, I don't agree with that. But anyway, Bobby Knight was a nut. He was just totally out. At least he's not throwing chairs across the floor at people. Doc, I'm going to be totally honest with you. I'm competitive too. And sometimes I've been in situations and I'm over 50 and I wanted to whoop somebody's ass. No, I didn't move on it, but the thought came across my mind. So, and you're in this highly charged competitive world, and, he does have to do better. He probably needs to work with somebody in doing that. But, the other thing is the assistant coach got suspended for a game. What did he say to make him lunge after him? Because I'm sure something was said that was inappropriate that made him snap like that. But, we haven't heard the total story yet.
Well, this morning in my class, I'm going to show the video, and I'm not going to say anything. I'm just telling the students, write down what you see. Because to me, this is why I tell people why cultural intelligence is so important. You can't put your hands on another black person, and don't ever put your hands on a black child. You know what I mean? But we know that. But other cultures don't. And when I saw it, it looked like Juwan Howard was just going to do the, perfunctory, good game, go to the locker room. Then the Wisconsin coach grabs him by his arm as if like to kind of restrain him. Like, no, you're going to listen to me. But, I just think, our cultures, we work differently depending on the culture you're in. But that is just a universal principle. Don't put your hands on somebody unless you want to get hands laid on you. All right, shifting to the NFL, former Attorney General Loretta Lynch has agreed to defend the NFL in the lawsuit filed by former Miami Dolphins head coach Brian Flores. Now, when this was announced, black people all on social media were shaking their head, and they sister said, of all the people to defend, you're going to defend the NFL. Luke, what was your initial response when you saw that Loretta Lynch was going to defend the NFL? Because people say you can't find black coaches, but you can go find black defense attorneys.
Listen, man, the NFL knew what they're doing. They knew what they're doing. They're in a lawsuit dealing with racial discrimination, and they hired not just a black attorney. They hired probably one of the top black attorneys in the country, former attorney general, that they know can do the work that needs to be done, but also send a very clear message. Now, I thought it was interesting. Right now, again, I don't know all of the details. I have to go back, but I know we had this conversation about Brian Flores before when the lawsuit was announced, and he had lawyers out, on the media circuit talking about the lawsuit, and there were white lawyers that were out there. So it's kind of an interesting, dynamic that we see here, on both sides. The NFL knows what they're doing. They're not dumb. I mean, it's a multi-billion-dollar organization, and having Loretta Lynch is a big name that stands for justice, and that's going to be able to, ultimately work out a settlement in this situation.
Kevin, should we be critical of Loretta Lynch for, quite frankly, appearing to sell out?
Well, we talked about this and you brought it up. I mean, look at Brian's attorneys. I mean, this is a chess match. This is about, going out there and putting your best foot forward. And this is about winning. So, the NFL did their homework and they were smart, and this is very strategic. I mean, as Luke said, she's a very, very good attorney. I mean, very good, one of the best in this country. And so, it depends on, and she thinks that she's taking this case and that there must be some merit on the NFL's part of this. I'm sure if she didn't feel like that, then she wouldn't have been taking this. It's going to be interesting how all this turns out. The great thing is Brian, he ended up and he has a job now, and he's working for a tremendous coach. So we'll see how this all works out, because I didn't think he would ever again work in the NFL, to be truthful with you.
All money ain't good money. And my thing is, and I know black professionals have some unique dilemmas, Luke, but, we've got to just establish a standard of what is acceptable as a black person. You know what I mean? And it seems to me, well, you know what? Maybe when y'all defending hip hop artists, maybe Loretta Lynch just getting her bag like everybody else. You know what I mean?
Well, let me ask you this, Doc. But no, I think you're onto something here, because yeah. I'm curious. Why would you think, or why do you think, not necessarily that you think it, but people are saying, to your point, that she's a sellout for taking this opportunity. Do you think she is? And what would you do if you were in this situation? If the NFL came to you and said, Doc, we're about to handle this whole situation where we're going to, settle with Flores, but we need to make some change. We need to figure some things out. We want to bring you in as a consultant. We're going to pay you a ton of money to do it. Are you saying no because you think it'd be a sellout?
No, I think to sit down and work out an issue about how the NFL moves forward is one thing. I think to actively go on record as defending the NFL, I think those are two different conversations. And I'll say this: every black professional has been tempted to sell out for a whole lot less money. But the thing that has guided me is, number one, I can't miss money I never had. Number two, a big pot of money won't change my lifestyle. And I think number three, to me, there are some things just about principle. I got to be able to go to sleep at night. And I can't go to sleep at night knowing that I took this route over here to get a bag without understanding how my actions may have been impacted the black community. So that's just my take.
But let's be. I want to defend my profession for a minute.
Go ahead.
And I think in this instance, and again, I don't know, right? I don't know Loretta Lynch. I'm not, close with the decision makers at the NFL, kind of on this side of things. But as lawyers, we don't just defend. I mean, obviously that's the role in this instance, but it's also to advise. And so if you think about, she could be in there in a situation where she's able to help the NFL kind of navigate this to a positive resolution, right? So we can look at it and say, you know what, we're only going to work to tear things down, right? And or we can decide to say, hey, we're going to work inside to try to effectuate change.
Working inside doesn't mean I gotta be your attorney of record. We can work inside. Luke, Luke, you have 2 daughters. Let me bring it home. Luke, you got 2 daughters. Let's say
1 daughter, 1 son.
Okay, you got 2 kids. So let's say they're in middle school and they get expelled. Something happens, some kid throws something at them, they get upset, they get expelled, and you find out that this principal in this school district, are straight up racist, that the expulsions and suspensions are overwhelmingly with black students. You file a lawsuit. If a black attorney comes and defends the school district and you got all the evidence in front of you, you're not going to be rationalized and saying, yeah, this brother's defending the school district, but maybe he's trying to make things better on the inside. You're going to be like, brother, how can you defend these folks if you see their record of how they treating black kids?
First of all, I'm going to go like Juwan Howard and lay hands on some people, first of all. Second of all, then, listen, I hear you. I agree. But at the same time, if I was in that boat too, I would have that conversation with that lawyer straight up. But then I'd be like, what are you going to do to make this a better situation? You know you're wrong. Like lawyer, right? So I don't have to talk to the, potential in this hypothetical, the racist administrators. I can talk to you as a Black attorney and we can have a conversation. I can tell you that I think you're wrong. And I can tell you, here's what I think needs to happen. And you need to go back to your client and make this happen. That to me is a different kind of conversation.
That's real. That's real. All right, moving on. So, and Kevin mentioned it briefly. Brian Flores gets picked up by Mike Tomlin. Kevin, me and you have talked about this before, about, when Black folks get unfairly pushed out of positions, it seems that sometimes the Black professionals or their Black peers desert them. Do you like what Tomlin did here, Kevin?
Oh, absolutely. Mike's a great coach, but he's a great human being. And you know what? He stands for the right thing. So, him going out and doing this, but it even speaks more so with the Steeler organization and the Rooney family, because Mike just didn't go out and do this on his own. He had to have approval. So there's, what they're telling the NFL is that we don't think this is right, and we're letting our coach write this by bringing him in here because he's a good coach. We want to help him, but he can help us as well. I just want to go back to one thing that y'all was saying. I mean, we see these Black folks up there with Trump shirts on saying Blacks for Trumps. So, there's a lot of folks out there that are have different opinions than we do. So, we just got to take that into hand as well, going back to the last conversation.
And let me say this, and I know I can be critical of Loretta Lynch, and I really believe she's probably a good person, a great mom, great wife, great attorney. But I do think, Luke, we can be critical of people in their role as professionals. I told somebody, my boy in Charleston said Tim Scott is a cool dude. But Tim Scott in his role as a center is a sellout. He may be cool to play golf with, watch the game with. He may be a good Sunday school teacher, Kevin. And so I think we can make the distinction between attacking them professionally and detaching that from who they are at their core as a person. And I just want to make that clear. All right.
I'm with you on that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I listen. I agree too, and I think that's what's so hard about politics these days, right? I mean, what makes it so challenging is that people can't separate the two. But I think we can be critical, but at the same time, I think we also, going back to Loretta Lynch, I think we also have to be able to be mindful of, the fact that yes, we can be critical about her taking on the role, but at the same time, maybe that's a great thing for potential change or advancement in the NFL. But I do want to go back to Brian Flores, because I think, with Tomlin, I think what he did is really important. And it's important for a couple reasons. Number one, Brian Flores was potentially on his way out of the NFL for good, potentially, right? I mean, if you think about it, bringing the lawsuit, even if there's a settlement and it doesn't go to trial and it's just a settlement, like, are there owners out there that really would say, we want to bring this guy back in? Had he gone, let's just say, to college or something, he might have been forgotten about by the NFL, period. So for Tomlin and the Rooney family, the Steelers organization, to bring him in, I think they win. I think the Steelers win because they have a great coach now on their coaching staff, another great coach on their coaching staff who has head coach experience. It's going to be beneficial. But at the same time, I think they're very clear as to what they did, which is help him stay active in the NFL ranks and potentially have a future, head coaching job in the NFL again.
So this is the dilemma when it comes to handling injustice in the workplace. I've heard several people maybe want to file a lawsuit against an institution, and the one thing they are told is, well, if you file a lawsuit, you won't be able to get another job. And so it's like, what do you do? As a Black professional, as a Black person, what do you do? If people are saying, yeah, the courts is the best way to get this handled, but if you file a lawsuit, you'll never. And so it's just frustrating, man. And I really think, Brian Flores sort of, getting the Curt Flood treatment to a certain extent. Curt Flood battled for free agency in Major League Baseball, got it, but his career was never the same. And let me say this to Black folks in leadership. You have a responsibility to hire other Black people. Plain and simple. Black folk can get leadership. We're the only people who are afraid to hire people who look like us. And I've always been amazed at it. I've never understood it. Kevin, you did it at Maryland. You hired black folk at Maryland, gave people a second chance, right? I hired black folk at LSU in Texas, people who would never even get an opportunity. So, folks, if you have a position of leadership, you have a responsibility to give other black folk an opportunity. All right, let's move on.
Hey, Doc, wait 1 minute. You said something, and you might not even file a lawsuit and not get another job. So, that street is very narrow, my friend.
Come on, Kevin. You're right about that. You're right about that. South Carolina and Stanford are 1-2 currently in NCAA women's basketball. And question for you all regarding our friend Dawn Staley. If Dawn can get a ring, if she can get her second ring this year, does that solidify her as one of the all-time greats, or does she still have more work to do? Because I don't know if she'll be able to catch up to Gino, and that's sort of a different era. But just in terms of this era, Kevin, does Dawn need to get that second ring this year?
No, she's already a phenomenal coach. She doesn't need anything else to prove what she's been able to do. I can't see them losing. The only way they lose a game from here on out is they beat themselves, because they've got, she went out and she recruited. She's got great athletes. She's a great coach. And in my estimation, she doesn't need to do anything else because she's a tremendous coach, but she's a tremendous human being as well. The thing is what else does she do after this? Does she go over, does she look at doing the men's game? Does she go to the NBA? If anybody could do that, she can. And I think that there needs to be a woman that makes that transition into that area of professional sports. She's the right person to do it. Because I know one thing, them brothers anybody wouldn't give her any shit.
But it's different when you coaching people who getting paid, though. Different. Urban Meyer, you found that out. When the player has more power than the coach, it's a different dynamic. Luke, does Dawn Staley need to get the ring this year? Does she need to get number 2?
Does she need to? No. Is she going to? Probably yes. I think, I agree with Kevin. She absolutely has cemented herself, kind of among the greats in coaching the game. I want to stay on this for a second because I think that it would be great to see Dawn make the transition over to the men's side. And I think it takes somebody like her that is a great coach, obviously a great individual, a great recruiter that can win games, that from the women's side to be able to come over and coach, a men's team at the college level or even at the pro. I'd love to see it at the college level. I think she could, really kind of make a mark in doing that. Or she can continue to go on in South Carolina and just continue to win championships. She could be, just like whatever, Pat Summitt, Gino, right? That every single year, is out there winning championships or having a chance to win a championship. And she could do just that. But she doesn't need to do that in order to be, categorized as one of the best. She's already there.
I wonder sometimes, brothers, if we talk about her jumping to the men's side, are we subconsciously saying, and hear me out, are we subconsciously saying, yeah, she's a great women's coach, but, because I think when we asked her that question back when she was on the show about a year ago, Kevin, I think she was kind of offended. And I think that's how a lot of coaches on the women's side take it. You're telling me that, yeah, this is good, but that I'm less than, and go to this. Let's go to the men's side to see if you can really coach. Is that what we're saying, Kevin, or we're saying something different?
Well, Doc, and I agree with you, and I thought of that. The thing is, though, is that we're always out there trying to conquer new things for us to advance us. Unfortunately, in our society, that's how we look at things some way. So now she's accomplished, she's won championships at this level. So now the question is, can she transcend what she's doing now to another level? I apologize because it could be offensive, but that's not the way I'm coming at this. I'm just looking at her as a coach. Let's be honest. She relates to the players. She recruits. She knows the game. She coaches the game. There's not too many people that have that entire package. She has that entire package. And so that's what I'm saying when I think she could go and see if she could be successful somewhere else. But I'm not trying to offend anybody because, Well, particularly with her, because she's a friend, and
Right.
I have the utmost respect for her. So that's not where I'm coming from, but it could be taken that way, and if so, I apologize.
Yeah. Luke, let me ask you this. Go ahead, Luke. I'm sorry.
Well, I was just saying, I mean, same thing, right? Like, for me, when I think about this, I didn't even think about that as possibly being offensive. So I appreciate the conversation here to even think about that. But when I think about, having a woman coach on the men's side, it's this idea of breaking another glass ceiling, right? We have plenty of male coaches that are head coaches on women's basketball, plenty. But can we talk about, a woman coach on the men's side that goes out and wins a championship? And the thing is, we know they could do it, right? We know it could happen. We just haven't seen it. And so then you have to say, okay, is it going to be somebody that comes up through the ranks, right, and works their way up through the men's side on the assistant coach's side and kind of going up? Or is it someone, in my opinion, which gives complete props and kudos to Dawn Staley, who could, I think, literally make the transition after this season and take a team and do just that on the men's side, which I think would end up breaking the glass ceiling to allow, people to realize, what, any woman could do this work, just like men can do it on the women's side.
Well, I'm thinking, Luke, maybe she could go, she's from Philly. I was going to say, man, if Ben Simmons was there, she could have went to Philly and helped him with his mental health issues. All right, move.
Wait, no, you didn't. No, you didn't.
That boy don't want to play basketball, man. All right, moving on. Sticking with women's basketball, last year, the NCAA women's tournament was super exciting. And I've been saying this for 5 years. The WNBA product has got to get better. And I don't know what solutions you all have, but last year, the NCAA had all these women's tournament, all these dynamic personalities, great coaches, great games. The talent level was high. But I ain't gonna lie, man, it seems like when you go from the NCAA, the women's tournament, women's Final Four last year, to the WNBA, it just seemed like a drop-off, man. And that's why you don't see people like Dawn Staley wanting to go coach in the WNBA. It is a bad product. And the issue is it on the NBA or what? What is the issue with the WNBA? That's what I'm trying to figure out. The salaries are low, so they're playing in the summer. Help me out, Luke, because you're a big WNBA fan, and I have a daughter who plays college basketball.
Doc, that's what I was going to ask. How many WNBA games did you watch last year?
Maybe about 3 or 4. But the better thing is, how many games do my daughter's teammates watch? It's none. And that's my point. If it's not appealing to them, you know what I'm saying? I mean, some people argue that the WNBA is only around because basically they say it's a community service project for the NBA, that the NBA is subsidizing it. But what can we do? And I feel like to talk about the WNBA is such a sensitive topic that people want to say, if you're saying, no, I want to see the product become better. I want to watch it. And I'm trying to figure out, help me out, Wayne and Luke, what can the WNBA do to be a better product?
First of all, I think the WNBA is getting better and better every single year. I think that the product is becoming better. If I had the opportunity to buy into a WNBA team right now, I absolutely would. I think that the product continues to get better. There are a lot of things that the WNBA, the league, could do to make it better. It sucks to play in the summertime. Let's be honest, right? Who's really saying, okay, I'm going to come in from this nice weather outside. I'm going to stop my vacation, right? And I'm going to turn on a WNBA game. Let's be honest, right? Think about it. Baseball deals with that. Baseball struggles with it, with declining viewership and things like that. It's in the summer. We've just gone through, right? We know March Madness. Most people will tell you on the men's side, in the women's side too, but March Madness is way more exciting than regular season professional basketball, men's or women's. It's way more exciting. It's a different product. It's built in a way that, you put together a tournament and it's, you win it, you win or go home, right? And ultimately, that creates that excitement. The WNBA, it's just different, but I think they're starting to make some things change. They need to pay their athletes more. They need to have a better media deal, right? To be on TV more and things like that. When those things start to happen, I think we're going to see a change.
Where they have 10 teams? How many teams, Luke and Kevin? 10? How many franchises WNBA? Like 10? See, look, you don't even know. I think it's 10.
I think it's 10. I think it's 10 or 12.
So for me, it's you don't create enough space for these younger girls coming out of college who are dynamic, who are more popular with young people. Again, not hating on Sue Bird and Diana Taurasi, but they've been around a long time. You got to create some space for these new sisters to come up who the younger generation is more, I would say, knows them a little bit better. Kevin, what were you going to say?
Well, one thing I think we need to look at what happens over in Europe and how it's more popular, the professional women's basketball, than it is here. They get paid more. That's why they go over there. But, if they wanted to fix this, if they really wanted to do some things, they do it. Because the NBA, look at how they promote the men's side of it and what they do and how creative they are. So, why not take some of that creativity and all those smart people that work for the NBA and put it into the WNBA and have the product improve as well? That's the question that has to be asked. Good point.
It's money, though. It's money, though. Let's be clear, right? It's money that is the reason why that doesn't happen. And you look at the media deal.
The question is there a market in the United States for women's professional basketball? That's the question.
Absolutely. Yes.
Or are we trying to manufacture a market? Is there a market? Because remember when they first started, they had a WNBA team in every NBA city. And I thought that was a great model. In Cleveland, we had the Cavs and the Rockers. And I always felt do the thing like they do in high school basketball in Mississippi. The women play before the men. All right. But anyway, let's move on. Got a few minutes before we get out of here. The NBA All-Star Game was held in the great city of Cleveland, Ohio this past weekend. Luke, how was your event in Cleveland? I know you were spending time up there.
Yeah, it was great, man. We had an opportunity to bring together Black agents, Black attorneys, Black front office folks from different professional teams, Black publicists, basically Black representation. We partnered with Diverse Representation and Jaya Thomas, and we had a great event. It was just great to see and have that conversation around how we can continue to do great work in our representation of athletes.
Did y'all leave downtown and go visit the neighborhoods of Cleveland?
Man, listen, first of all, Cleveland was snowing and icing and cold. So I stayed in the comforts of downtown where everything was.
Right. Okay. So Kevin, I watched the NBA All-Star Game on Sunday, and I thought the game was phenomenal. Steph Curry put on the show. But Kevin, what was your take when they brought the 75 best players out? What moment kind of moved you the most during that period?
Well, I have to be honest. I didn't watch it. I watched the first quarter. It was an exhibition. It wasn't a basketball game. And so, I could appreciate all their skills, but I was doing something else. So I think it's great that, they brought Oscar back and some of the old school folks, because, that's what I grew up. And that's, the thing is, Michael comes back. And so I think that's good for the game. But I have to be honest with you, I didn't watch it.
For me, it was seeing Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He doesn't get out much. And, Kareem has been very, very political out front. It was good to see him. Most people don't realize that when he came out of high school, he was the most highly recruited basketball player ever. And somebody said that now he's only second to LeBron. He came out of Power Memorial High School in New York City. Good to see, Kareem. What about you, Luke, at the halftime? Did you watch the halftime? Or were you courtside? Like that?
Nah. I watched it all, and I thought about you, Doc. I actually thought about you because I'm like, oh, Earth, Wind, and Fire is performing at halftime. Doc will be happy. Like that'll be a halftime show he could get behind. But no. What excited me about even the 75 players was it was really cool to see the current players, how excited they were to see some of the older players come out. Because oftentimes, we as fans, right, hold our current players up in such high esteem, and then to be able to see them get giddy and excited and want to be around MJ or Magic or Oscar or Kareem, like that was really exciting to see.
When them brothers got around MJ, man, they just start falling over that brother. Gary Payton's falling like, man, Gary Payton, you're supposed to be the brother coming out of hard Oakland. You know what I'm saying? But the people say, I read somewhere they didn't know MJ was going to show up at all because he was at a NASCAR event earlier in the day. But it was good for Jordan to show up. Maybe he can get back in the fold. He need to get that franchise together, though, the Bobcats. But anyway.
Not just any NASCAR event, though, because I got a little love for some NASCAR. Not just any NASCAR event. It was the Daytona 500. Daytona 500.
Okay. I got you.
So let's talk about Michael for a minute. Michael was 40 years old. He averaged 37 minutes and I think 25 points at 40 years old. He never took a night off. He played in every game. Ask these cats now to do that.
Kevin, he didn't have mental health issues.
Hey, Doc, I'm not even going to touch that one.
Exactly. Just leave it alone, Kev. Let him have his moments.
Hey, will you text me when Ben Simmons puts on a uniform again? All right. Hey, closing out, the more things change, the more they stay the same. Many of us celebrated when the white female police officer was convicted of killing Dante Wright. She was sentenced this past week to 2 years in prison. And just to put this in perspective, there's an African-American male in the state of Texas who was a felon who registered to vote because he thought he could participate in the voting process, found out that he illegally voted, and he was sentenced to 5 years in prison. So what do we tell our kids, man? That even when it appears that justice is being served, it's not.
I struggle with this, especially talking to kids. I mean, I've got an 11-year-old and a 7-year-old, and, they're into kind of watching the news when I'm watching it and have a lot of questions. And these last couple of years, it's been really hard to have some of these conversations with them because it's almost impossible to reconcile these things in my own head, let alone try to educate my young people about what's happening here. This was, in my opinion, this was shameful. This was someone who was a trained law enforcement officer who put a bullet through the heart of a young black man in his own vehicle. And to me, 2 years, this is sending the absolute wrong message. This, to me, is not justice.
Kevin, 30 seconds.
She was a veteran. She had been on the force, I think, 20 years. But I think what's despicable, it was a judge and how, she was unprofessional. She let her emotions get in the way. And there's the rulings were that it was like supposed to be 5 to 10, I believe, if you look at it. And she gets 2 years. I mean, explain that to me because, I have no way of understanding it.
As we go to our final segment with our closing thoughts, I want to thank you again for joining us at Fourth and Justice. We're here every week. Dope content, raw, unfiltered. And we're just three brothers who just, it's barbershop talk, a little more enlightened barbershop talk, because we bring our unique perspectives, me as a professor, Luke as an attorney, and Kevin as one of the best athletic directors the country has ever seen. So, Luke, we'll go to you first for your closing thoughts.
Yeah, you kind of just hit on what I wanted to talk about. I mean, I've tried over the last few weeks to just, acknowledge different folks as it relates to Black History Month and living Black history. And I think about this show and the opportunities that we have to just have these conversations. And what encourages me when I think about all of the leaders, who've made such an incredible impact from a Black history perspective in history, it's always because they saw something that needed to change and they went out and endeavored to change it. And just even if we have that opportunity to change some thoughts and minds and give different perspective on this show, that's something that we do. We all do our own things individually in our professional and personal lives to just, help make society a better place. And I just encourage you, whoever's listening out there, if you've got an idea, if there's something that you're trying to do, become Black history, make it happen, do the work. And you've got people out here that are rooting you on and cheering you on from the sidelines.
Kevin?
Harold Varner III sunk a 90-foot eagle putt to win a tournament in Saudi Arabia. Young African-American brother who gives back to the community. I want to give out a shout to him. And the last thing I'd like to say is every day is Black History Day.
I want to give a shout out to Black folks in corporate America who are over the Black Resource Group. You put together a Black History program with very little resources. You got to reach out to professionals like myself to come and speak. And I really appreciate what you all do because I know it's not easy. And I want to give a shout out to the corporations that have invited me in over the last year. I know Leonard Moore can be a lot. And so I thank you for being courageous and thank you for standing up for Black history. Well, another show is in the books. We'll see you next week. Peace.
My name is Dion Davis. I've tried to live my life with no regrets, but I guess my final regret is not getting vaccinated. Please, don't let not getting vaxxed be your final